Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And it's time for another daily dose of dismal Disney. I think.
I don't know. I just think Disney's scared. That's what I think.
They definitely are. Not only did we have them using Abigail Disney to try to sway people into keeping the current Disney board. It's so weird because she literally made a movie attacking Disney, but they've got her on their side. And then George Lucas, another person who famously attacked Disney over decisions related to the Star Wars sequels. Well, he's coming out and supporting Disney, and now we've allegedly.
It really didn't sound like him, but okay.
If it was actually him,
yeah,
and not a droid. But now we've got Michael Eisner, who was ousted from Disney in favor of Bob Iger. So this is weird. It's like they've gotten the Disney Rogues Gallery together, and it's basically like having Joker, Riddler, and Catwoman all supporting Batman. Well, I guess you'd probably strike that and reverse it, because I think Disney at this point is probably more like the Joker. But you know what I'm saying? You've got enemies of Disney, or people that have had problems with Disney in the past, now coming out and publicly supporting them.
Well, I would think enemies is, except for Lucas, yeah, because he definitely was really pissed. But the other ones, I don't think they're enemies, but they definitely
strained relations. Let's put it that way.
That's more fair. Especially Abigail Disney making a whole entire film dedicated to shitting on Disney and complaining about Bob Iger all the time. Eisner actually hasn't been. He never was that bad about it. I mean, he got ousted, but he's never been like a dick about it. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I'm gonna go on record again for like the umpteenth time. I actually think Eisner was a much better CEO than Iger, and it's a shame that he got pushed out the way that he did, and that led to Iger going on a spending spree, and here we are.
You know what's funny? Both of these dudes were CEOs when they were considerably younger. And I mean, Iger still is, but you know what I mean, for Disney. Yeah. And it's like, can we please pick somebody who's maybe not like, 70s?
Yeah, right. It's like, I mean, some of the decisions is like, let's throw money at Fortnite, because I've heard about that.
I know. So I'm like, can we just please have somebody who's not like in their 70s? I mean, and that even applies, I guess, pretty much to Peltz and Rasulo, because they're older too. But it's just like, can we just get a younger CEO in there? That'd be nice.
Well, that might be a problem too, because it depends on how young we're talking.
No, because here's the thing. I mean, yeah, you don't want too young, but a lot of even the people that they're looking at for replacements, they've been with the company for years. Yeah. So, you can be with the company for years, still be younger. These guys were hired. They were with the company, and they were working in corporations for years when they were hired. Eisner was CEO for like 11 years, from like 84 to 2005. And then Iger was 2005 to 20. Was it 20? And then back again in 2022.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, because it must be pretty bad. It must be pretty bad.
That's what I'm thinking.
For Disney to pull out the big guns, and just a week or two away from D-Day. Mm-hmm. So I think they're getting a pretty good feeling for how the vote is going to go, and I'm not sure it's going to go the way Disney wants it to. I think if they had this in the bag, I don't think they would be trying so hard at this point in time to still sway people to vote for the current Disney board.
No.
So anyway, before we get into it any further, please subscribe. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, go out to piratesandprincesses.net for more objective Disney news. If you do both, you'll get a double woohoo.
Oh, woohoo! Woohoo! Sorry, speaking about double, I was looking at their ties, and the ties speak volumes. Like, if you look at Eisner's tie, it's like bright, colorful Mickey Mouse. That's kind of indicative of when he was in charge. And when you look at Iger's, it's like very, oh, look, we have hidden Mickeys. And it's like very corporate-y looking.
Yeah, Iger is not a creative person at all. He buys creativity, and then his lack of creative vision, leads him to put people in charge that don't have what it takes.
He's more worried about putting people in charge that are loyal to him than necessarily that are the best choice for the position.
Pretty much, because, look at every company they've acquired. They basically got the management with the company, and even if they weren't a good fit, he still kept them. So, with Pixar, the reason Pixar worked is John Lasseter came with the deal. The reason that Marvel worked is Kevin Feige came with the deal.
Perlmutter did too, but he doesn't like Perlmutter.
He doesn't like Perlmutter very much. But objectively, things were much better when Perlmutter was there. I mean, some of his decisions were freaking stupid, like the Inhumans. But, you know what I'm saying? Like, we had better Marvel. There was a roadmap. There was a plan. As far as Kathleen Kennedy with Star Wars, like, who knew? Who knew that was going to happen?
Lucas. Anyway.
Yeah, apparently not.
So, today Michael Eisner put out a tweet. Yeah, I had to put a transcript of it because when you actually click on it, it doesn't give you the entire quote. So you can go out to the tweet because you have it pulled up.
Oh, okay.
There you go. You were the one that found it, so you go ahead.
Yeah, it just happened to pop up like literally a minute or two after he posted it because I do follow Michael Eisner. But he said, yeah, as I told the New York Times in Dealbook in 1983, Disney was under attack by corporate raiders trying to take over the company. And
yes,
I actually have
that before.
Yeah, I do have an article pulled up that talks a little bit about that. That would have ended the Disney company as we know it. For the studio, theme parks and hotels were suggested to be sold off. The board turned to me and Frank Wells, and a different story was written, one that was continued by Bob Iger and his executive team. Today, a similar situation exists, so let's remember the lessons from 40 years ago, bringing in someone who doesn't have experience in the company or the industry to disrupt Bob.
But Rasulo does.
But Rasulo does.
I know. They keep stepping over that.
Yeah. To disrupt Bob and his eventual successor is playing not only with fire, but earthquakes and hurricanes as well. The company is now in excellent hands, and Disney shareholders should vote for the Disney slate. Now, the thing that gets me about this is it all comes down to Bob Iger, but to the best of my knowledge, Bob Iger's job was never in question.
And that's just it. They keep going about Bob Iger, and that's what they keep leading with. But it's not Bob Iger that they're trying to replace. It's a couple members of the board. They're not trying to replace him. They're trying to work with him to correct the situation. And they keep spinning it like it's a hostile takeover, and that's not what it is.
Yeah, one of the people that are going to be taking the board seat has almost as much experience as Bob Iger does with the company.
He was COO when he left, which is what Bob Iger was when he took over for Eisner, because Eisner got ousted in 2005 early. He left early, and Bob Iger took over. So,
Yeah, so it's weird because we have, again, George Lucas, who doesn't look very happy in that photo, but he never looks happy, to be honest, in any photo he's in. But except for the one meme where he's laughing hysterically with all the money he made off of Disney. But yeah, he's said on multiple occasions that he felt like he got stabbed in the back by Disney, that he sold his baby to white slavers. Now, all of a sudden, him or someone from his office or a droid or whatever put that statement out saying that he was backing Bob Iger. Abigail Disney, who made videos and made a whole damn movie about how awful Disney was.
All of a sudden is backing Disney.
Yeah.
It's backing like Iger and Disney.
Yeah, it's
weird.
It's weird.
I mean, also it says to me that they're shitting their pants because they're like bringing out everybody they possibly can. Then they did that like political-esque hit piece, the mudslinging one. They put that out, which was very unlike Disney. I mean, behind the scenes, where they talk shit, probably, but up front, publicly, the public face is never one to be like that. For them to go that far, that just says to me that their pants need change because they're carrying a load.
This is interesting. Some of the responses to Eisner's tweet. This one I actually agree with. Why don't you come back to be the creative lead while Iger can be your financial lead? I would agree with that. I would say that Disney was more creative under Eisner. The Disney that
some of the choices weren't great. But
the sequels, the cheapquels were a terrible idea. But that being said, the live action movies aren't much better. And I would say that they're actually worse in a lot of ways. But he actually did innovate. They actually did add so much to the parks. They course corrected animation on his watch. They started to do a little bit better with live action. We had the Disney Channel blew up on his watch.
Hollywood Studios was under him.
Hollywood Studios, yeah.
And so was Animal Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom was under him. Epcot was already, it was Card Walker, I think, was the one who greenlit Epcot.
But Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom was under him.
Yeah, so basically the parks doubled in size.
But that's just it. See, like where Iger took the money and just bought more IP, Eisner took the money and built bigger parks.
He invested in Disney. He invested in Imagineering. He invested in animation. And, we're not seeing that with Iger. In fact, when Eisner got gone, I think they kind of pulled the plug a little bit before, but that was pretty much the end of 2D animation too. Like they switched everything over to 3D, and then
that's true.
Then Iger just wanted John Lasseter to run everything, and we got The Princess and the Frog, and I think that was like the last thing they did. But it's just really sad because maybe I have nostalgia goggles on because I remember growing up watching Eisner on The Wonderful World of Disney, and he did kind of have that Walt-esque persona. And that's kind of the face of Disney. I remember
that's
growing
what
up in
I
the
remember
80s.
too.
Yeah. And but he seemed like he was more creative. He seemed like he was a hell of a lot more fun. I can't picture Bob Iger talking to Mickey Mouse or talking to Roger Rabbit or anything like that.
No, but again, I don't know. He might, but again, he'd be kind of stiff. Again, though, if you look at him there and you look at Iger when he started, they're both younger people.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody that's older. I'm just saying, I think it's easy when you do something for a long period of time, no matter what your age, to become complacent and to not necessarily, unless your back's pushed against the wall like now, to not always have the big picture in mind. Or if you have somebody who's a little bit younger and that they're new to the job, at least for a while, they're not going to hit that level of complacency. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, but then eventually they're going to, no matter who it is. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know. I think they need somebody that thinks more like Walt Disney, or at least remembers, a better time at Disney before it became, Disney Co. And you can argue that, they did save Disney from corporate raiders, but I'm like, I think Disney itself became a corporate raider, and they basically
they are. That's it. You become what you claim you didn't like.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
We wanted to save the company from getting gobbled up by other studios. And I know they got close a couple times.
It was very tumultuous time back in the late 70s, early 80s at Disney.
Epcot almost destroyed the company.
Yes.
They spent so much money on Epcot.
But I loved Epcot as a kid. I still love
Epcot's
Epcot
great,
now.
but I'm just saying they spent so much money on it, and the Disney Channel didn't take off right away, and they had a lot of box office misfires.
Oh yeah, The Black Hole. I hate that movie. Some people really like it, and it's okay. I watched it as a kid, so to me, it isn't. I don't like it like other people do.
I thought it was boring. Personally, I mean, I thought it had some good visuals, but I thought it was boring. It felt very dated, even compared to Star Wars and the Star Trek, the motion picture. Like it just felt very dated. It felt very like 60s, kind of.
It really did.
But it's interesting. This blog post from Doug Lipp, he talks about Disney and where they were when they almost got raided in the early 80s, and they were in a very similar situation to where they are now. They said that there were several leveraged buyout attempts in 83 because they had stifled creativity. They had lots of box office bombs. Animation was stagnating. The company was directionless because Walt, had passed like 15, 20 years before. They said through a number of brilliant moves, the board of directors averted the hostile takeovers by bringing on board two new executives from outside the corporation who channeled the delicate balance of the founding brothers of Disney. And that would be Michael Eisner and Frank Wells. They said break down creative barriers, get it done right. Now, here's the takeaway from that, which I thought was interesting because Disney's in the same place right now. No one is too big to fail.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it. I think Iger seriously thinks that, or thought at least that, Disney was too big to fail, and that, spending more money was the right answer. Make it bigger and it won't fail. But I think you overinflated it, and now that the streaming is dying off and everything else, which was going to always happen since day one. We're like, it's only going to work so long, and then there's going to be streaming wars, which we joked about, and that's what happened. You bit off more than you can chew, and then when your attitude was like, "We'll just slap Star Wars on it, and they'll come." I was talking to Squid King about it the other day, and he was saying about Marvel films. He goes, "I think what happened, or was it you? One of the two. They were talking about Marvel. The problem, I think it was Squid King. The problem was that." He thought that if you put Marvel on it and you could just keep doing the same thing, the same movie over and over and over again, basically.
Yep.
And, people, honestly, if you give people what they want, they'll come.
Yes.
The problem is, and they're like, okay, we're going to change it all for whatever reason, current year. And you're just going to take cheaper, not as high quality films because you're trying to crap so many out, and shows and everything else. So you're not getting the special effects done. You're cutting corners right and left, and you're going to put Marvel on it, and people are just going to eat it up. And they're not, because you have to give us what we expect, and it has to be quality.
Yeah. And they said it's a double-edged sword. On this article, legacy and brand are double-edged swords.
They are.
The longer your history, the bigger your brand equals you become risk averse. and circle the wagons plotting decision making. So basically,
you mean like Frozen 3, 4, 5, Toy
live
Story
action
5,
adaptations,
yeah.
Phoning it in.
They're still planning on that.
When you basically get to a point where you do have this big corporation that you have to keep the machine moving, you're almost better off, I think, in some ways, having nothing to lose, because that's kind of what happened with the Disney brothers, where it was like, well, we got nothing to lose. Let's just bet it all on Snow White. Let's bet it all on Disneyland. Let's bet, because they're like, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, we go bankrupt and we have to start over again. Well, we've done that before, so whatever. We might as well go big or go home. But Disney now is like, no, we have to please the shareholders and we have to get, so let's announce sequels to shit so they don't freak out when we're like, yeah, let's do something completely different. But they said they have to have the equivalent of a Walt and Roy on their teams. Basically, you have one money guy and one creative guy. And that's the problem, I think, with Disney now, is they don't have the creative guy. I think Lasseter was that guy.
I think they have creative people. I think DeMauro and stuff is.
DeMauro, yeah.
But the thing is like, they're not to the point of being in a position of being in charge. Like, they're not usually the COO or the CFO or the CEO. You know what I mean?
Well, they need somebody who thinks like Walt, or who is creative like Walt.
But they also need somebody to say financially.
Yeah, because Walt, here's the thing. People don't realize, Walt Disney was a great man. He was a big thinker. He also had no concept of money and how much money he was spending. And if it wasn't for Roy, Disney would have gone tits up
years before.
And they did a couple times. I guess he filed for bankruptcy a couple times because he was just like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to do it. And Roy's like, yeah, hey, that's not going to work.
So, it's reasonable. Both sides are reasonable, but for it to work, at least in Disney's case, you need to be working in conjunction. Like, you can't just be one or the other. It has to be a joint effort. And I think the reason we're seeing so many stumbling blocks is because we aren't having that joint effort. You have Iger, who just is a money guy and wants to spend a lot of money. And then he keeps saying we'll turn the creativity back over to the creatives. The problem is you've already chased most of the creatives that made, Disney popular up until the last few years away.
Yeah.
And, you're basically saying you're stifling creative ideas if it doesn't hit certain check boxes. You have one of the potential successors for him going on, Dana Walden, saying flat out, we had some great shows, but they were too white, so we turned them down.
Oh, she'd be a disaster.
She's one of the ones running.
Yeah, I know.
She came from Fox. She wasn't even a Disney person.
No, I would never bring her in, because that tells you everything you need to know, that she's going to be led by check boxes and DEI and everything that they do. And I think this is why we're seeing a lot of this in more recent years. And she would just triple down on that. And that would be the kiss of death for this company, because she'd no longer be making programming for everybody. She'd be claiming that she was trying to be more diverse and inclusive, but she actually would be excluding Disney's core audiences, just by being like, yeah, well, we can't, have any shows with white people in it because, oh my God.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying that all the shows like that are creative.
No,
Disney's been diverse for years.
Yeah.
And Disney's had diversity, and it was done well many, many times prior.
What they did is they picked shows they thought that would work. They picked movies and concepts that they thought would work and would have mass appeal. You can have non-white characters, non-straight characters, whatever, in a show, and it still has mass appeal. Remember, Disney ABC ran Ellen back in the day. They had multiple shows that were predominantly black. I would actually argue back in the 80s, 90s, we had more sitcoms, more dramas, more shows that were had predominantly black casts than we do now. Like now, Blackish is like
original that weren't just rehashes of
that were original, that weren't just like the Wonder Years or something. But like, it seems like they've actually gone backwards. They're like, oh, we have to do a show called Blackish to call attention to the fact that it's got black people in it. I'm like, back in the day, we just called it, Different World. We called it Cosby Show. We called it The Fresh Prince. We called it The Jeffersons. We called it, you know what I'm saying? Like, we called it Good Times. We called it What's Happening. I love What's Happening. I love the one where Rerun was worshiping a cabbage. That was an actual episode. Okay. Anyway, are we gonna wrap this up?
Yeah, there it is. Eisner is backing Iger, which is, like I said, and the Disney board. But the problem here is they're like, we don't want to make changes. But the issue is they got threatened last year, swore they were going to make changes. All I did was cut a bunch of people, and then went back to the status quo.
Yeah.
And changes need to be made. whether it be the current board or somebody else, they're going to need to make some change. And if they win again, they're just going to think that they can rest on their laurels and get away with it. Because they're like, well, we went up against a full battle and we still won. Ha, ha, ha. Nothing's going to get better.
Yep.
Flip side is, disruption is not always good either. But Eisner, who was ousted by Iger, is supporting Iger, who isn't even supposedly being replaced, but whatever.
I think he knows if they get on the board, he's probably going to be replaced.
He was going to be replaced anyway. They're looking for a successor.
He doesn't. No, he's quote unquote finger quotes looking for a successor. He ain't going anywhere. This guy's going to go down with his ship. That's his plan, because he's not even looking. And I think he put Chapek up to it because he's like, yeah, I'll just throw this guy. Oh, look what happens when I'm not here, guys. Look what happens.
Yeah, I know. I don't know.
All
anyway,
right, let's wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.